Hello, everyone. We're going to start in just a few minutes. Okay, I think we can start now. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the first UK-Israel Women Leading Innovation panel, organized by the British Embassy and the British Council in Tel Aviv. I'm Elinor, Partnership Manager at UK-Israel Tech Hub, and for those of you who don't know us, we are a UK government initiative that builds tech partnerships between the UK businesses and Israeli innovation. And with me today are our wonderful, wonderful panelists. A warm welcome to Naomi Krieger Carmy, VP Societal Challenges at the Israeli Innovation Authority, Zoe Jones, leading on equality, diversity, and inclusion at Innovate UK, HIlla Ovil Brenner, Managing Director at Techstars Accelerator in Tel Aviv, and also the founder of Yazamiyot, which is a non-profit that promotes female founders in Israel, and Ella Goldner, co-founder at Zinc VC, and Alma Angels, an inclusive community of angels and investors. Delighted to have you all, and thank you so much for giving us your afternoon. So just to give you a little bit of context on today's panel, this panel is the first in a series of online events, and our mission is to build a UK-Israel network to support women in innovation in both countries, and also create that shared platform for collaborations and for shared best practices between UK and Israel. Now, in today's economic crisis, we can clearly see that challenges that women in innovation are facing that are also true outside of COVID are amplified and much more evident. So we will be asking our panelists this afternoon, what are the opportunities and best practices for women investors and founders who are raising capital these days? And we will also try and unpack what is done or perhaps should be done in both countries by governments, by tech companies, by VCs, in order to put diversity and inclusion at the heart of technology innovation. And our mission does not stop with discussions and reports. We really want to create opportunities for collaborations, for engaging events, and that's where we need you. We have such a great audience today, such a diverse group, men, women, Israel, UK, across different sectors, across different organizations, and we would very much like to know what you want to see next. So please reply to our follow-up email that we'll send you. And also just to say, thank you to those of you who have submitted questions before the discussion. We incorporated as much as we could to discussion itself. And of course, if you have any other questions during, then submit them via the Q&A box and we'll try to address them towards the end. And just before we start, I would like to thank the teams that have worked so hard on today's panel. UK Israel Tech Hub, UK Science and Innovation Network, Department for International Trade, and the British Council in Tel Aviv. Thank you. So I guess we can start. Welcome, everyone. Naomi, we can start with you if that's okay. You are supporting one of the strongest tech ecosystem worldwide. Tell us a little bit about your role and what is the one thing that really inspires you in your work?
Okay. Thanks, Elinor, for inviting me today, and it's a pleasure to speak to all of you virtually. I wish I could see your faces as well, but you all look great. So I am VP at the Israel Innovation Authority, which is Israel's government agency for supporting the technology and innovation ecosystem. Some of you may have come across it until a few years ago, called the Office of the Chief Scientist. So we're both a funding and a policy agency supporting the Israeli tech ecosystem, and we can go more into that later. My focus is around technology addressing societal challenges, so what some of you would call impact tech, technology addressing the fields of education, social welfare, health, etc. And then I also am responsible for looking at human capital in the tech industry. And as we'll get to, diversity and inclusion is a big part of that. What's inspiring? I think that the current times kind of reinforce the line between true innovators and the rest, because it really brings out kind of, you know, that quality of entrepreneurs and innovators that they just never give up. And I think it's been really inspiring to see that in this time.
Fantastic, thank you. Zoe, over to you. Innovate UK has been supporting thousands of innovative companies in the UK. I'm really curious to know about your greatest success to date.
Okay, thanks so much, Elinor, and it's amazing to sit on this panel with these other amazing women today, so I'm sure we'll all learn a lot. So I work for Innovate UK, which is the UK's innovation agency. We believe that the best ideas for innovation can come from anyone, and we exist to invest in innovators and innovative businesses with great ideas to grow. We do that through R&D grants, innovation loans, investor partnerships, and many other ways. And we also help to connect businesses with with partners for innovation. So my role is the program lead for equality, diversity and inclusion. So I help to encourage people from underrepresented groups into innovation and to grow their businesses. One of those flagship programs is Women in Innovation, which we started back in 2016. I'll tell you more about it later, but in a nutshell, we wanted to find more women with amazing ideas for innovation and to provide the right support at the right time for them to grow, and to also share their inspirational stories with others. And so far, that programme has meant that our, when we started out, 1 in 7 applications to Innovate UK funding and support were led by women, and now that's increased by 70% to 1 in 4. And hopefully it will continue growing, but it's something that requires consistent effort. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's a really great success. HIlla, you're wearing quite a few hats. Managing director at one of the top tech accelerators, Techstar, founder of Yazamiot, which is such a thriving community of female founders, and also a founder yourself. So tell us a little bit about what motivated you to advocate for change in that space of technology and gender. HIlla, you're on mute, sorry, you're on mute.
Hi, so first of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is an absolute pleasure to see all these amazing women in this initiative that is not my first time to work with such a professional partners like yourself. So I'm really grateful for being here. Thank you very much. So a little bit myself, of course, I decided to innovate in the female founders field because I was a really sole founder. I was the only woman in the room for a really, really long time. So throughout being an entrepreneur, I have a lot of gray hairs from raising money and building companies and succeeding and failing and failing and succeeding. And all this time, I felt like I was very much the only woman in the room. It means I didn't see enough female investors. I didn't see enough female founders. I didn't even see enough female managers around me. And my dream was really to create something like that. So about 2 years ago, I joined the world's biggest accelerator network, Techstars, which is really the most meaningful thing that I've ever done because I feel like I touched the lives of so many people and elevate them throughout this incredible network, Techstars. We have over 60 accelerators. We've invested in over 2,000 companies. We actually invest in about 2 companies a day. And we have a very, very serious reach. We are the most active investor for, and we feel like we are co-founders. So what really motivated me to do this was that I really wanted to touch the lives of women and, you know, get them to initiate more ideas and create and become entrepreneurs. And this is also why I founded Yazamiot, which is my biggest pride, over 5,000 female founders here in Israel. Exceptional projects like Campus for Moms, who became international, a project with Google where moms on maternity leave actually come and study how to start a startup, an accelerator with Microsoft, with Intel, Calcalis, like a series of events. And this was kind of my inspiration. So thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Ella, you're supporting social impact ventures at Zinc VC, and this is such a strong mission. Tell us a bit about your work and also a moment when you felt that great sense of achievement.
Being the last after these amazing women is quite a challenge, but so first of all, thanks for having me. I guess, so Zinc VC, I'm wearing two hats today, actually. I'm wearing Zinc VC and Alma Angel, so I'll talk about them both. But Zinc is, we're called VC, but actually we're a venture builder. So we take entrepreneurs before they even have an idea, and before they even know what they want to be building, but they know they have this itch to have more social impact, and we give them a mission. So every program has a specific societal issue we're trying to address. So it could be women's mental health, or the quality of later life, or the impact of automation and globalization, so future of work and education. And we bring together a cohort of kind of 50 people that are all driven by the idea that they want to use their experience and skills to solve those issues, and doing that through starting a venture that is going to be scalable and commercial. So they need to have a huge ambition, and they need to have a real passion to solve societal issues, and we bring them together and hope that something good comes out of it. We've ran it for 3 years now. So I'm also a founder, because we founded it from scratch. We had to raise money, same white hairs from that. So it's kind of, it feels like we're always just a step ahead of our own founders. And I think what I'm very proud of is the diversity that we have in our cohort. So we have 50-50, 45-55 split of women and men, nationalities, age, ethnicities, in a very diverse also portfolio of companies. So between 2/3 to 85%, depending on the cohort of our ventures, will have at least one female founder in their team. So that's kind of a huge pride.
You were breaking there.
Okay. I think my connection is unstable, is it?
Okay, no worries, but we got all these amazing achievements, so really well done. Well done to you all. I'm very proud actually to be here and speak to such incredible women. So COVID-19 is a global emergency that makes certain systematic problems far more evident. So for example, if we look at the UK government future fund that supports those startups that are facing challenges due to the pandemic, it was very well received, but some said it's a setback for diversity because it favors those startups that are backed by VCs, and these startups tend to be mainly led by men. So Zoe, I know that Innovate UK has been very, very active in supporting women innovators. And just in March, you announced a new award for the most innovative female-led startups. So I would like to know, can you share a little bit about what led to this initiative and whether there are other opportunities to support women in innovation and founders as well in today's reality?
Sure, yeah. So first of all, Innovate UK has a number of support packages available for businesses at this time, so all businesses, including for our existing customers for continuity grants and continuity loans, which allows them to continue existing projects. We've also got some funding available for new projects that are actually looking at the disruption that's caused by COVID-19 itself. And we've recently just funded over 800 projects through that call. And we received just an amazing kind of response from the business and innovation community on that. We had almost 9,000 applications, which was more than we had for the whole of last year for all of our competitions. So we're really excited to get those started, see you know, women leading those projects just to start off with that. But Women in Innovation, as I said, we started it back in 2016 to get more women innovating in business. We've, as you mentioned, we've just launched round 3 of the programme, and the awards package provides a £50,000 financial grant, and also tailored business support, which is really specific to the individual at the stage that they're in their business. We've seen amazing success from the award holders that we've worked with so far. They've gone on to do much bigger things. They've kind of leveraged their grant and secured much bigger investment rounds following on, and we've created some amazing kind of role models and inspirational stories to get more people involved with the Women in Innovation programme. So it's not just about the awards, we're also building up a community similar to HIlla's, and I think we could actually do more to connect up those two networks, which is why we're all here. And we've got around 4,000 women who are leading UK businesses that we interact with regularly. So there's a lot of that work going on as well, and we've got a lot of sessions at the moment providing advice on IP and commercialization, marketing for the business community that are running leading up to the opening of the Women in Innovation Awards at the end of the year, which are open to everybody. So I would encourage you to kind of have a look at those, and I'll share the links with you all afterwards. But yeah, that's
great, and great. That's already an outcome of connections between HIlla and Zoe, and wonderful to see. Naomi, Israel Innovation Authority has announced last month a plan to infuse $142 million to help Israeli startups that are basically pressed for cash because of the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit more about your selection process? Are there any sectors that you prioritize, and any other funding platforms or tools that you offer to support the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, on a regular basis, you know, one thing that's important to clarify is we support the entire chain of innovation, right? So it's a lot of it is startups, but it's also very early stage entrepreneurs even before they've set up a company, and then it's also growth companies, you know, who are, some might call them startups, but they have already hundreds of employees and a product and markets and et cetera. And I think, you know, the biggest impact that we see from the whole current crisis is, besides, you know, the obvious, hard to get to the office, hard to manage with all the health restrictions, companies are worried either about their funding drying up or about their markets drying up. And then, you know, for some of them also, if they have manufacturing or if they need to deal with, you know, export and import of physical goods, then that too has become a challenge. So we're looking at, you know, how can we keep the industry going, you know, at this critical time. And then we're also, of course, as, you know, Zoe said, in the UK, very interested in how can we find those innovations that will help, you know, address the crisis. And that's both on the medical side of things. So whether that's, you know, a vaccine, diagnostics, treatment, things like that. But then there are so many other aspects to this crisis, you know, in terms of needing to reinvent so many industries. Education has changed dramatically with kids trying to learn from home. Elderly care, you know, any kind of medical treatment. So many areas, work from home, you know, so many areas suddenly need new innovations and new solutions. So what we've done is we've both set aside a certain amount of targeted funding, you know, for COVID-related innovations, and had a very fast-track process to evaluate applications there. And to give funding. And then we're just looking kind of broadly across the board at how we can adapt our funding programs. And we've launched a fast track program, which is much more focused on kind of companies' financial sustainability. So we're looking kind of for that sweet spot where companies on one hand have been negatively impacted by the crisis and really need the cash now, but on the other hand, you know, how to put it nicely, they're not too far gone that our money will just be wasted by pouring it into companies that are not going to make it anyway. So we're really trying to kind of identify that point and also there have a much expedited process for that. And I should say that, you know, that process ties along with what we do in regular times. And you asked about diversity. You know, in 2019, we launched a new scheme providing increased funding for women-led ventures. And, you know, we're very proud of it. It's, just gotten off the ground. HIlla and others were instrumental in really kind of getting it out there to the ecosystem. And so we really encourage all innovators, but particularly women and other minority groups who may not have been through 2 rounds of a crisis before and have the experience to draw on, may not have all the deep pockets of the investors. So public funding becomes really important at times like that.
Fantastic. And how do you reach those underrepresented communities?
Well, as you saw in Israel, everyone knows everyone. So we call HIlla, and she calls everyone else. So no, I mean, but we do invest really in outreach, in marketing, both with kind of grassroots groups, digital marketing, etc. So I think that we managed to reach a lot of the target audience, but we're always working hard to get to more.
Great, thank you. HIlla, Techstars has been supporting early stage startups across different sectors, aerospace, finance, retail, and you're actually launching a new accelerator program next month. So congratulations for that. So can you tell us a little bit about what you see as the main concerns and opportunities for early stage female founders in this reality? And just to say that I've read your article, your interview that you gave for CTech, which is a technology news site, and it was really fantastic. So maybe you can share some insights from there as well.
Thank you. So yes, I'm very proud. I'm opening the first ever Tel Aviv accelerator, because prior to this cohort, we had a fintech accelerator, a very successful one with Barclays here in Tel Aviv. But this is the first vertical, agnostic, and general accelerator here in Tel Aviv. And I'm super excited because we have 10 exciting companies, and we're building the community here. We already have over 70 companies that went through Techstars programs around the world. So I'm excited. Tel Aviv is Startup Nation. It's a big passion of mine. And I think this is a great step for Techstars for innovation. And the more brands come to Israel, the better we create and we become better and better at entrepreneurship. But in general, I think it's harder on female founders, especially during COVID-19. But in general, it is harder. Yes, we are lucky here in Israel because there's a lot of people dealing with the situation. We have a lot of organizations. We're lucky to have the government support us. Naomi was a great addition and doing amazing things in the government, but also we have, a lot of people, very good people who are dealing with this. Having said that, there is approximately 8% female founders, CEOs in startups, which is a very poor number relative to the 51% we are in the population. So something needs to be adjusted and needs to be better. And I think we are all working towards it. There's a lot of really good initiatives, but there are challenges when very difficult things happen, like the COVID-19. Sometimes I said in the article that it's a disaster for feminism because it takes a lot of women back. I don't know if you know some of these women who have like a special deal with their husband because there is a nanny and there is a long after school program, and so they both work. But the moment they both need to be at home, sometimes because the man anyway earns more money, it makes more sense for him to be working and for the mother to be looking after the kids, which take us a few steps back again. And also because VCs and angel investors are first looking after their own investments, they don't make new investments, and because there's so little females in their portfolio, it's a little bit of a disaster. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a lot of challenges, especially in terms of networking. Look how beautiful this is. We have like over 100 people here from all around the world listening to us, which is a great pleasure, but we are really good with networking. And sometimes we are even better than men with networking. And so when this whole people thing disappears, sometimes women take a few steps back because they feel like they can't make the right connections, because conversations on Zoom are sometimes more transactional, more focused, and less female. friendly. And so I think a lot of this has disappeared, and we have a lot of challenges in that respect. Having said that, I'm optimistic. I feel like things are, the right way. So
actually, I'm touching on the point that you mentioned on networking. Has anything changed in terms of your engagement with startups? Because you're an accelerator, you do meetups, you do a lot of face-to-face. So maybe tell us how you convert those in today's reality.
Well, I really try, but I have to say I'm one of those people who really need people and interactions and conferences. And if you look at my Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm always doing something and going to places and meeting people, and it's very difficult for me to have these very almost robot interactions and networking. So we try to do that. We've turned all our programs to virtual at Techstars. We have at Yazamiot nearly every week a webinar event with like really hundreds of women that are coming to listen and get tools and learn about presentations and fundraising and meet role models. And sometimes it's even easier than organizing a conference, right?
Yeah, you reach more people, absolutely.
Reach more people and it's easier, but there is something to be said about interaction and hugging people and knowing what they really feel. I myself, it's very difficult for me to overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely.
HIlla, they say that COVID has really separated the introverts from the extroverts. So we know which side you're on.
Thanks, I love that. Yeah, thank you. That's good. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you for that, HIlla. And Ella, Zinc VC builds mission-led tech companies from scratch, and more than half of your portfolio companies are actually led by women. Firstly, I'm curious to know, why do you think you succeeded in that space in creating the balance where so many others have failed?
Thanks for asking, because I think it's, I don't think we did something, I don't think we have a different balance to what we actually have in the population. So to Hilla's point, like half of the population are women. So I think being purpose-led and mission-led, this kind of social impact, draws a lot of kind of representation of what we actually have in society. So I think people are willing to take bigger risks in order to pursue something they're really passionate about. So I think being kind of socially driven and purposeful helps with attracting the best talent. So we can actually, the pipeline of the applicants that we have, so we had over 2,000 applications for eventually 3 programs, so 150 spots, really allows for that kind of diversity. A lot of people actually would want to take the risk and would be willing to take the risk of starting a company, which is a huge risk, right? Like, who would actually do that knowingly? But people for the right reasons would do that, and I think that's where you get like a good representation of everyone. So I think that's just by definition is one. And then we also have a very strong leadership team that is mainly made of women, and I think having that, and when people research, they see the website, when they actually go through the selection process, a lot of women will be interviewing you. So I think that attracts other women and also reduces the bias in that kind of process as well. So I think a combination of being kind of mission-led and then also having a lot of women in our organization, which on one hand people can see themselves in it, but also makes sure that the, I guess the process of selecting the founders is, I would hope, less biased. And even though I have some stats suggesting that women and men investors are biased in the same way in terms of the way they frame questions to female founders, but we can come to that maybe a bit later. But generally speaking, I think that there's less bias in that way.
That's really really great to learn, and also because you have such an experience with the very, very early stage, kind of probably some of them are first-time female founders, and you are also an investor, so you are also fundraising. So perhaps you can share with us kind of the advice on fundraising in this crisis, any kind of top tips that come to mind.
Yeah, so I actually made a little list because I think it's, I don't know who's in the UK from the audience, but I hope that, I'm Israeli born, but I live in the UK, so I'm very plugged into the UK ecosystem at the moment, naturally. So I wrote down a few things, but some of them are quite specific. So I think going back to Hilla's point about the need to network, So you have to network, like whether you like it or you don't, that's the best way. You want warm intros, people that can say, oh, I know that person. And if your name comes up and you're LinkedIn related, all of these things, you have to go out and do that. Whether you like it or you don't, it doesn't really matter. If you want to be an entrepreneur, that you're going to sell yourself, you're going to sell the vision, you're going to sell to employees, to investors. So network a lot. And in the UK, there is a very big emphasis now on trying to improve accessibility. So there are lots of office hours, which is a great way to network, because you're going in, you're pitching, someone gives you feedback, but on the way they might really like you and they take a note, and and usually people are very generous with their kind of offers to connect. So Playfair Capital partnered with Tech Nation, and they're offering virtual kind of office hours on the 4th of June. So if you're a female entrepreneur in the UK, check it out. Tech Invest, this is another event part of London Tech Week, which was meant to be in June, but now postponed to September, but they're doing a virtual kind of event in June, and you can apply until the 28th of May to get into that kind of competition, which is about, again, women-led businesses pitching. Atomico, which is a huge fund here, are hosting office hours for female founders working on SaaS products. The application closed on Sunday. So these are just a few things that people can take away. And then there are lots of networks, and Diversity VC do a lot of things, and there are a lot of female founder kind of office hours. So if you really just look it up and just go and throw yourself into that kind of ecosystem, and once you're in, people are very, very generous. And you also meet other female founders in those events and make new connections. So I would say that's the most important thing. Then beware of bias. One tip that I did learn a lot about from a female founder that went to do research, and her name is Dana Keynes. She's now at LBS, and she did a research about how female founders pitch. She thought we don't pitch well enough. We're not confident, and we don't relay the message well. That was her thought, being a female founder, and she saw her male counterpart was doing much better than her. So that was her thesis, going and checking, okay, how can we improve that? And what she did, long story short, she found out that actually it's the way that the questions from the investors are framed that are biased already. So men and women both will ask women a much more preventative type of questions. So they'll ask them about the risks and mitigation, and really limit the conversation. Whereas if it's a man, they'll ask them about the market opportunities and the growth and the global domination. So be aware of that. And then what you can do as a female, so if you're an investor, be aware of that. And then if you're a female founder, what you could do is turn that around by answering in a promotional way. So say I asked you so tell me about the risks, and you turn the conversation around, and then you talk about the opportunities and say, well, this is what our competitors are doing, but this is a blue ocean strategy, and we're looking there and that, and that's where the growth is. So that way you reframe the conversation, and that is highly correlated, and the data suggests, with investment. So just be aware of bias. Give back. That's the other thing. Even when you're very early on, you've done only like pre-seed, it seems like at that point you're looking and you're thinking, oh my God, look at all these people, they've done the seed and Series A, which I don't think is any way of measuring success, but forget that. But they're doing really well. And then you think, who am I? But there's like a lot of other women behind you that are looking at you and thinking, wow, my God, she's made it. She's a founder, and she's managed to kind of start a company. And I think by giving back, you also increase your own kind of confidence. You understand your vulnerabilities. Actually mentoring others is mentoring and fixing yourself a bit. So just give back, and also those things usually come back somehow. Like those things always come back. So be part of the ecosystem and give back. So those would be my 3 things that if I could tell.
That's gold.
And we hear that so much from our cohort of Women in Innovation award holders, when we put on all these sessions to support them with particular areas of business support, but actually at the end of it they say, we wish we'd had more time to network and spend time with each other. So peer networking is really underrated, and giving back to the community. So I think that's something that we definitely advocate for as well.
That's great. All these tips and advice, it's really gold for our listeners. So thank you for that. Now, the next couple of questions actually came from our audience prior to this discussion, and I kind of mapped them all, and it's open to all of you. So the first one is really about women in the workforce of tech companies, because we see that for example, Diversity VC, which you mentioned, Ella, they did a study last year, and 83% of VC firms in the UK had no women on their investment committees. Now, we know that there are many initiatives in the tech industry to really ensure the inclusion of women as decision makers in tech companies and VCs. But there is now, I guess, a risk, because everybody's attention is really shifting. There is a risk that it's being sidelined, that these initiatives are being sidelined, and that they are basically labeled as nice to haves, and no one really taking action. So the question is, what can tech companies and decision makers do to keep the momentum and promote opportunities for women in senior positions, and really ensure that companies reach out to female talent? Anyone can take the floor.
Okay. I guess, I mean, it's actually even worse. Like in the UK, they've just published that the government dropped the need for companies to report about gender pay gap and other things. So it's definitely like going to be a very big hit for I think women in the UK and probably elsewhere. I think there is I think that there are some opportunities as well, in the sense that as a working mother, I don't have to be traveling an hour and a half a day to go back and forth, right? So I could, if we've embraced that way of working and I was able to do more of that, then you get more time to work or to spend with your kind of family. And I think as employers, and some employers like Twitter announced that they would never like ask people to come back to an office for the foreseen future. So I think as more companies will actually, and there's a commercial benefit for that, right? You can drop like rent and leases. So there's an incentive for employers to rethink about where people are working from. It's much cheaper to employ someone from home and pay for their internet connection to make it really good and give them a good, computer, rather than actually having to pay for, an office that accommodates everyone all week long. And I think there is an opportunity to change that. So I think those who are already in the workforce, I think women should be very vocal about it, about wanting to keep that kind of flexibility and that way of working. And I think the good thing is I think men see the benefits as well. So a lot of my friends and colleagues talk about the fact that they can spend more time with the family, and it's not necessarily by choice that they don't. We take assumptions that they're enjoying kind of not seeing the kids, and if you look at traditional kind of structures. So I think if we all as workforce, both men and women, were trying to push more the agenda of working from home and finding that flexibility, I think that actually is going to be very much correlated with more women being able to do more and be part of that kind of, and then it also levels the field, right? So it's not that you are the woman leaving early or working from home and men are there, throughout the day in long hours. Actually, we're all now working weird hours, different ways. So I think that's an opportunity to really level it. So I think if I were in an organization, I can make the business case through actually saving the costs. So think about ways of models of working and use that as an incentive to actually then bring the benefits of diversity and flexibility. So.
That's great. It actually touches on another topic that was asked, is really around the new working norms. So I'm interested to see, in addition to what Ella mentioned, if anyone sees any kind of positive changes that we see in our working reality, something that will actually provide more opportunities for women, and how we can make sure that we integrate those positive elements into the post-COVID reality.
So I think there are a couple of aspects to that I think also kind of I do want to stress, maybe as women, our responsibility to maybe not only be thinking of women like ourselves, in kind of full steam career track, advanced industries, whatever. But actually, if you look at the overall breakdown of the workforce, women are way overrepresented at a lot of the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. The service industries, the childcare industries. Not the bottom of the food chain in a value sense, but often in a pay sense, in the flexibility of those positions. So someone who's working in a restaurant or in nursery school, you know, has no options of working from home or having any flexibility, and they've often been the ones kind of pushed out. So I think, you know, that's one thing to be aware of when we have this discussion about, you know, I absolutely agree with what HIlla has said. You know, for a lot of us, I think this has, in a way, opened up possibilities. On the other side, I think we need to be aware of kind of those who have gotten the shorter end of the stick in this. Where I do think that, you know, maybe there's a bridge between those, the positive and the negative, is really, you know, also kind of where you asked HIlla a question in the beginning, you know, why do we see more women innovators in socially related or impact related fields? And I think, you know, it's because, you know, again, this is all generalizations, and each person is an individual, but there are more women who feel a stronger motivation and passion, you know, to be doing something that's having a positive impact on others, on society. And so you'll see more women innovators are just working in the industries, you know, of health and health tech and social tech. And I think this is really, you know, the moment for those industries to shine, because I think everyone, you know, so I can say I've been trying to talk for a long time about kind of harnessing innovation to address societal challenges, and most of the time I get blank stares, and, you know, nobody knows what that means. Now it's like, oh, now we get it. You know, mean like solving, you know, something like what's going on now, and, you know, well, that's not a societal challenge. That's a national priority. We need the generals and the army to come solve it. So, you know, so I think actually, you know, the places where women have been very influential in the tech world, in the business world, in the industries they've chosen to be in, you know, are really getting their moment in the spotlight now. And we absolutely can't miss that moment, you know, by getting sidetracked with other conversations, but we really need to ramp that up. And that's where I see a huge potential, you know, for kind of what can come out of this crisis.
It's such an important point. Thank you.
I think it's also a great opportunity for the businesses that we work with to raise the profile of some of the leaders, the female leaders in those businesses. So this is clearly a really difficult time. All of their staff have increased responsibilities, and balancing work with the rest of your life is really challenging. But being able to raise the profile of how women have led their organisations and their teams through this crisis is really important. And we've certainly seen kind of incredible resilience and adaptability of the businesses that we work with and their teams. And we've seen kind of refocused strategies, pivots, and just they're trying anything and everything to get through this and to support their own diverse teams through it. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of raise the profile of those leaders and encourage more women to get into business.
Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot, but just my data, one data point that 3 of our ventures had gone through the Innovate. They won the new Innovate grant, the COVID grant. So 3 ventures, 2 of them have female founders, so fully kind of only women founders. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but it'll be interesting to see kind of the diversity in your awards and stuff. But I think that's a point to celebrate. I think, for example, that has in my very little world, 66% were female founders. So I think it's just maybe adding to that kind of point is how government and innovation agencies can take a role in empowering and helping women, especially the early stage. Because I think one of the big criticism in the UK, for those of you who are aware of the Future Fund, is that it's actually not supporting underrepresented or minority founders, because they actually don't get to the point. There's a threshold that you have had to raise £250,000 to be applicable, and then you have to have a VC that will apply on your behalf. So to get to that point, you're already kind of looking at a pool that has only 13% female founders, so the pool of eligible kind of ventures, right? If you look earlier stage, you have more diversity, more female founders, 23%. If you looked at kind of the companies that incorporated in the last 2 years that haven't raised that money. So I think kind of that's where innovation agencies and government can and should play a role, and that's kind of there's a lot of debate in the UK around that and what's the role of government in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's really great. And Ella, looking at the questions now, someone already wants your tips and advice as a list. So that's already a good point. So I'm just moving on to the questions from the audience. We have a few questions that we're going to take. One is asking, are you funding limited to only your country citizen, or you engage with international applicants? So is your funding limited just to the country where you work?
So if the question is for me, I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah, you can answer actually, yes.
So Techstars is a very global international network. We have over 60 accelerators, and last time we had 6 international and only 4 Israelis here. So we fund every company from wherever they are. So it's
and Innovate.
I'll answer briefly for the Israel Innovation Authority. So we support Israeli companies. It doesn't have to be Israeli citizens, but the company has to be registered in Israel. But then there are a lot of bilateral and multilateral support programs encouraging collaboration, between either 2 countries or a group of companies from different countries.
Yeah, and just to echo what Naomi said, our Women in Innovation programme is for UK business owners and women, but we also have a number of bilateral competitions with Israel. So to name one, the Eureka Network has lots of opportunities, and the Eurostars competitions. And also last March, just as a quick plug, we took a group of 18 women in artificial intelligence to Israel to connect with innovation partners on a global business innovation program. So if you're interested in collaborating, if you're a UK-based business and you're interested in collaborating with innovation partners overseas, that was an absolutely fantastic experience, and that network is still going strong, and we're here today. So yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Just one more question. International cooperation and flying all over the world is so important to building a business, particularly in Israel. What does the immediate future hold for us with COVID?
Well, whoever knows to answer that one wins the jackpot. But I mean, so obviously none of us know right what's going to happen now. I think that businesses are really trying. Again, I mentioned them in the beginning. I think everyone's biggest concern are their markets and their funding, and so companies are trying to find a way around the travel restrictions where it's possible. And I think that we talked about kind of tips to founders and to businesses. The biggest one I think is really searching for the pivot opportunities, or searching for the change opportunities in this crisis. So maybe a company that was developing a physical product starts working on a digital one. Maybe a company that was looking to sell through distributors is now looking for a direct to consumer model. I think any good CEO should be looking at a few different scenarios now and discussing those different scenarios with their board and with their mentors. And as we always say in a pitch, the founder that gets up and says, "I have no competition," is the founder who's not going to get funded. So the founder who's getting up now and saying, COVID is not impacting me, I would advise them to take a close look at that statement, because it impacts everyone directly or indirectly, and everyone should be looking at how this could be a positive moment for changing their business. And yeah, travel is hard, and pitching through Zoom is hard, and manufacturing is probably the hardest, and that's going to be a tricky one.
I don't know to say exactly what's going to happen, but I do think there is a different impact in different countries. Like I would say for Israel, I see still a lot of fundraising happening at the moment, which is surprising and super great because we prepared for the worst. Mainly also because a lot of people are looking for opportunities. So I get a lot of phone calls from angel investors saying, well, did you hear of opportunities, or listen, this company that we spoke to, are they running out of money? Do they need money now? I don't know if it's only in Israel or in other places, maybe it's only Israel, but I feel like there is still fundraising, but people are more careful about fundraising, and cash is king, they say. So companies need to really budget. In my portfolio are adjusting their budget, their business plans. It's okay to say, we don't know how this will impact us in the next few months. So we don't know, but like Naomi said exactly, it impacts everyone. And so you can't say that we're just being untouched. It's terrible.
Very true. Okay, so we're towards the end of our panel, and it's been super interesting. And just to finish on a positive note, so clearly diversity and inclusion within tech, innovation, and the workforce is always going to be a work in progress. But in terms of your next goal, what does success look like to you in today's reality? And you've touched on positive changes, but perhaps something that you could see as kind of a short-term goal. And of course, if you want to tell us that piece of advice that you want people to come out of this panel with, so please share that as well. So let's start with you, Zoe.
I lost my mouse then. So I'd say a key goal for us following directly on from this session would be to continue growing the peer networks that we've created, the women in innovation community in the UK with the Israeli networks, and just to keep growing that and keep creating opportunities for businesses and women to come together and share their experiences. I think that's definitely something that would be good to see in the short term come out of this.
Great. Naomi?
Yeah, I mean, I think that someone touched on it earlier, that kind of about the preconceptions that people have about, how women and men run businesses and deal with things. And one of the things that you often hear is, oh, women are much more risk averse and more conservative about their business. And actually, research has shown, we heard about some of it before, that that's not true. So, prove it. I think everyone, show that a time like this is not a time to be kind of hunkering down and just waiting for the storm to pass, but to be launching new initiatives, driving the business ahead. That's certainly what we're trying to do. And also asking ourselves tough questions about, do the programs and assumptions that we had before, are they still relevant? Do we need to change them? It's hard work, and it sometimes seems easier to just kind of wait it out and see if it's worth making all those changes in the short term. But I think we owe it to to the people who look to us to provide solutions. So let's try to commit to that.
Wonderful.
And be thankful that the kids went back to school. I think in the UK
maybe
they
in
didn't
Israel,
yet.
but in the UK we're still waiting.
We're happy.
Ella?
I guess our goals, given the missions that we have, which are mental health, the impact of automation and globalization, which is obviously going to have a huge kind of increase. Later life, and the fourth one, which we're going to launch, is the environment. I think our goal is actually to be able to do that at scale. So this was always our plan before COVID. I think what we see is this is an opportunity, because I think coming out of it, there'll be more talent that would want to do those things, whether because people will rethink priorities, and as we discussed before, and kind of take that moment to reflect, or just people will unfortunately have to do that because that will be the new reality for them. And so we want to harness that kind of flow of talent into our programs. I think the world will look to find more innovation in those areas, because those will become even more acute problems. So I think we're going to see fast tracking the not just solutions, but also of problems. So I think mental health post-COVID will be even bigger, and we'll need more innovation as one example. And then the third thing is, I think, unfortunately, we will see a lot of small early stage ventures being wiped out from the ecosystem. And so I think there'll be a need to kind of fuel that back with new small kind of starting points. Otherwise the funnel will dry out, and in 5 years time there'll be nothing to scale. So we're quite, again, I think maybe going back to Naomi's point, like how do we as entrepreneurs see this as an opportunity? I think it's seeing those three trends coming together and feeling we want to make advantage and take advantage of those big trends and waves, and be there to capture that and therefore create more societal kind of benefiting ventures with the most amazing talent. So that's kind of where I'm going to be focusing on the next few months. So
a lot of work. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. HIlla?
Yes, I have to start by saying I'm optimistic. I'm really optimistic that things are improving and in all directions, especially for female founders. I know the numbers are low and I know it's harder for them to fundraise, but I do feel there's a big, I don't know, dynamic and things are changing, and there is great people, like I said, that are really doing this. And I look at Yazamiot today. I've been doing this for 10 years, right? So it started in my back garden, and there were 5 of us drinking wine and whining about how difficult it is to be a CEO and a mom. And ended up becoming something so big with like substantial partnership with Microsoft and Google and Intel and all these international, and it touches the lives of so many women. And we've just had our first exit from Campus for Moms, like 2 moms who met on Campus for Moms, just sold their company at like over $100 million. And you know, there's a lot of things that are happening. So this organization has really touched the life for a lot of people, and I'm optimistic. My goals are to continue growing it so that more and more women would be able to just stand there and say, wow, we can do this, and we could be normal, have kids, and be on webinars, and at the same time to make it to, I'm gonna go home and see my little daughter so I can be normal and shop and also have a life. And so I want more and more women to feel like they don't need to be like men and laugh at the same jokes that men make and go to the same sports games just so that they could be successful CEOs. Mm-hmm. And that's my goal, and I think we're getting there. And Techstra's goal is to empower entrepreneurs and to help them succeed. And these 2 goals together work kind of hand by hand. And I'm happy that people like you are giving this just a serious stage and taking so much care in doing this. So I'm grateful to you all and being with these amazing women, and hopefully we'll go from one strength to the other. So
thank you so much. Thank you, HIlla. So clearly the efforts of promoting female participation in the tech industry, as you said, they have to be intentional. They require time, and they require resources, and also a genuine desire to really make a positive change. And I think you all today you really demonstrated so well that motivation and the passion actually to helping in that space. So I'm very, very grateful to you. And we hope to use our unique position at the British Embassy to support women in innovation in both countries. So as I mentioned before, please reply to our email that we'll send after today's session, and let us know what it is that you want to see. And just to finish off by thanking the fantastic panelists for your valuable insight. It was really, really wonderful to have you here, and I could spend, easily another hour speaking with you. So thank you very much. And thank you for the great teams behind this panel today. Ella Kaplan, Daphna Frucht, Ravit Kapunea, Naomi Friend, Karin Levit, and Liron Atias. Thank you so much for your hard work. And thanks to our audience for listening, and hope to see you in a few weeks in our next initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Elinor.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.